Happy March there, Metropolitans. We're just a few short weeks to the regular season on this jam-packed episode of Mets Digest. We're talking about AJ Minter, one step closer to being on the mound for the Mets in the regular season. Well, we'll talk about that. Plus, Billy Eppler is back and working with the Milwaukee Brewers. We take a quick look back at his legacy with the New York Mets. Plus, Andy Martina over at SNY suggests the Mets should have co-captains. But who could they be? What's going on, everybody? Flobo Boyce here, and this is Mets Digest. Thank you so much for rocking with me. I know there's a lot of Mets channels out there, and the fact you check on this one to see my face means the world. Myself and Mike D'Angelo, thank you. Do me a favor, if you're watching this channel, if you're on the channel and you like what we put down, make sure you like the video, make sure you comment below, positive, negative, anywhere in between, and don't be part of that not subscribe crew. People just show content and watch content without subscribing. Subscribe to the channel so you know when new videos are dropping. So, top story today, AJ Minter. Last week when I was on the channel last, we were talking about AJ Minter being one of the perhaps sneakier acquisitions for the New York Mets. We know about his injury history. He was trying to get back from having his hip pretty much damaged, but getting that surgically repaired, but took one step forward this past weekend, yesterday, as I record this, throwing the first live batting practice session of the spring training season. So, think about this. If AJ Minter's ready to go, it would be a good boom for the Mets. But if he's not, that's just one more injury to pile on a growing list of injuries that we have in the arm barn. But AJ feels just a little bit better about how he felt on Sunday, giving us good news with the prognosis. This comes from us from New York Post. It says, quote, this is from AJ Minter, physically felt good. Minter said on Sunday, quote, that's all I can really ask for. I threw a lot of strikes. I think I threw too many strikes. Wish I got some more swings and misses. The competitor in me wishes I would have gone out there and struck everyone out. But being the first time facing hitters since August of last year, I was happy with it. Check the box today and on to the next one. By the way, that's one of those hits from Jay-Z that we kind of liked when it came out. We kind of forgot about, On to the next one. On to the... Anyway, good thing to take from this. AJ feels good. Throwing things down the plate is great. So things weren't wild, but obviously doesn't have the magical mix of stuff. But the opening day roster situation is still uncertain. This comes from us from the New York Post. They're saying that NAM New York is saying that as well. Even though AJ looks like he's good to go, it really is up in the air. So this next few weeks will be critical. That's why having a live batting practice session was that step forward to making sure he's ready for opening day. I kind of want to see him there. I don't want to be able to say that, hey, look, we have even more injuries to talk about with the pitching staff. But the fact that he's able to say he can get things over the plate is pretty awesome. I appreciate that. Other news, you might not know the news by now, but Billy Eppler, Ep-Dog is what we called him, is signed on to be a special advisor with the Milwaukee Brewers. Eppler was pretty much persona non grata last season on the ineligible list after being dinged from the office for manipulating injury list time. Whether or not it's true or not, I think he did not appeal, but whether it's true or not, it's up to debate for the nuances that is, because we can always talk about how executives always manipulate injury time, but Eppler was out of commission in the 2024 season. Now back, the lifelong baseball executive has a new home after spending time with the Los Angeles Angels and the New York Mets as well. Interesting thing about Billy Eppler, a lot of good came with his tenure as general manager, a lot of things not so good came with his tenure of general manager. And I know everyone thinks about the Daniel Vogelbach trade, or people think about the Darren Ruff situation. I should say that the Darren Ruff situation was a lot more critical. But there were some good things in there as well. Mark W. Sanchez over at New York Post actually goes into detail about this. Some of the things that he does get credit for, Billy Eppler does, when he was working with the Mets. Eppler had served as Mets general manager from November 2021 through the 2023 season, overseeing a strong 22 season, the signings of Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, and ensuing trades of the star pitchers, was expected to remain with the organization under new president of baseball operations, David Stearns, before resigning on October 5th, 2023, while under MLB's investigation. Again, the investigation was for manipulating injury list time for roster spots, but it was interesting because if memory serves, Buck Showalter was relieved of his duties, and it was kind of understood that Billy Eppler would be relieved just on the fact of an admin change. But then there was this vote of confidence being like, no, Billy's going to be with us. And then he became persona non grata, being dinged by the league offices for that whole injury time manipulation thing. So now out with the Brewers. Definitely a solid team, a team that has some history of winning but cannot get over the hump. Kind of like the Mets in their own situation, but even though the Brewers are a stronger team on paper, will he be able to contribute? Time will tell. But to me, it's interesting that Eppler is able to get a job right after being off the injury, being right off the restricted list. The fact so many teams may need some fresh blood. The fact the Brewers went with an older executive or someone who's been in the game is very telling. Experience versus new perspectives. But I think about this, and so I want to ask you guys who are watching the chat right now about Billy Eppler's time as a Mets general manager. How would you grade him? I mean, on one hand, yes, the Darren Ruff situation will never be able to live it down, even though I don't think it should be that bad because I can't name the 4 prospects we gave up for him off the top of my head. But the idea of bringing Scherzer and Verlander was exciting at the time. Now, granted, we didn't really see them collapsing. We didn't really see the team not being good, especially in 2023. But to have those players say, look, I want to be a Met, was something that should not be ignored if we do hit the promised land this season and beyond. There really had to been a shift in the player level. Culture came later. So I'm kind of more favorable on the Eppler side, but what say you? I think it's really important to get your perspective on things because, it's not what I think usually, it's what you guys think. And speaking about what I think Francisco Lindor is my captain, but Andy Martino actually had a bit of a interesting one-man debate inner monologue over at Mets.com, thinking about the many different computations and permutations about the captaincy, and if the Mets really need one. To be fair, only the Royals and the Yankees have captains, 28 teams do not, and even though there was a debate, or I'm not sure there should be a debate, discussion of Francisco Lindor wearing the captaincy, the 2024 Mets especially said, hey, look, there's a bunch of guys that do captain-like work. It'd be hard to put a C on one person. So Andy Martino had a suggestion and said, what about co-captains? The Mets had co-captains before. Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter were co-captains back in the day. And if you weren't going to make Lindor the sole captain, why not give it to the most longest tenured Met currently on the roster? That's Brandon Nimmo. Andy Martino says, following difficult losses, David Wright, former captain of the Mets, who usually was the one to stand in front of his locker and face the media at times of crisis, no other Met carried the same gravitas. These days, Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo both shoulder such duties. Soto, who has been a leader in other markets, figures to share some of that job in Queens as well. Alonso differs from the others in that he's not a long-term contract, but he's nonetheless a spokesman when needed. He has also been in the organization for the better part of a decade. But really, it's that Lindor and Nimmo both shoulder such duties discussion. What was interesting to me. The Mets definitely don't need a captain because, again, there's more seasons that we had without one. There's more teams without one. But there's one person that I remember specifically from the 2024 season, pre-June, that was in front of the cameras every time the Mets lost. I remember Lindor. Maybe there is a clubhouse leadership quality to Brandon, not to knock him as well. If they were named co-captains, I wouldn't be upset. But I think if you're going to waste the time, if you're going to do the C, it should be a C on one guy. Aaron Judge has a C in New York because that comes with a certain bit of responsibility, even though you can argue that Juan Soto in many ways was the better player on that team when he was there. I think it should be Lindor, no. But if someone were to say, hey, co-captains is going to be Lindor and Nimmo, I wouldn't even be mad. Lindor, Alonso, I'll be a little bit of an eyebrow raise, won't be mad. I don't want 3 captains. I don't want a captain's duo without Francisco Lindor, because if Francisco Lindor wasn't playing the way he was, or going to community events the way he was, or representing the team positive the way he was, the captaincy discussion wouldn't even be brought up at all. But the idea of Nimmo and Lindor isn't the worst idea. What say you? 1 captain, 2 captains, no captains? That's what I want to know what you're thinking. But that is it for me on this edition of Mets Digest. Hopefully AJ Minter is good to go at opening day. Hopefully, Billy Eppler can get himself a decent team wherever the heck he's going. Much power to him. And hopefully, we have a resolution to the captaincy. And if it was up to me, it would be solely Francisco Lindor. But I want to know whether or not the Mets are going to have a captain moving forward. Let me know what you think in the comments below. That does it for me. I am out of here. And as always, it's LJM to the bitter end.